Hey folks, this video's coming to you as my weekly message, but it's coming a bit early. It's coming early for a couple of reasons. Number one is Friday is a holiday, and we won't even be around on Friday. And the second reason is because I have something very, very important to talk to everyone about, and I need to talk about it today. Uh, when you get this email with my video link embedded in it, you will see that it's a rather long email because I am also rolling out a new travel policy. Now, uh, this is not an easy thing. You know, usually when I do these video messages, I often have notes, and I've gone over it in my head 100 times. Well, maybe not 100, uh, but I'm not this time. Um, this message is coming really from my heart. Well, all of my messages come from my heart, but this is a little bit more so. Um, the travel policy, which you will all be receiving with my email, has been a very difficult thing for us to address. I am sure that all of you are very aware of the dramatic surges that are going on in increases in cases in South Carolina. As a matter of fact, South Carolina is now number 5 in the nation on the hotspot list. We've been as high as number 3. And as a matter of fact, many states are telling their own citizens that if you decide to go to visit South Carolina, when you come back to our state, you're going to have to self quarantine because we're not at all happy with the way cases are growing and deaths are increasing in South Carolina. So there was a time early in this pandemic when we had that policy for many of those states, saying that if you come to our state, you're going to have to quarantine. But now the tables have turned, and it's us. We are the hot spot across the nation. And it is for that reason that we become very, very concerned and even alarmed at what we see is happening out in our communities. We see not only cases increasing, but we see other things. We see folks that are out there and they're not wearing masks. They're really also in denial that there's even a pandemic or a vicious virus that's circulating. Uh, that is so disappointing and frustrating. We do have a very vicious virus. The COVID-19 virus is catching all of us by surprise and often unprepared. And we're learning every day. We're learning things that we didn't know about it even 2 or 3 months ago. We're learning things that are very difficult for us to swallow. We don't like wearing masks. We don't like having to stay 6 foot in distance. We don't like not being able to go to our churches and our community meetings and networking with folks. But we're learning that this is a virus that, when aerosoled, and that means spraying out through the air, it spreads very, very quickly. Even when there are masks being worn, even when there are social distance observations being maintained. Um, we're learning now that in many situations that even with a mask and this 6 foot of social distance, that if a length of time beyond 15 or so minutes is spent in this closed environment, um, that the chances of the risk of spread is really exponentially higher. So these are tough times. And because of these tough times, we are making this very tough decision with this travel policy. You will see as you read this that the travel policy applies to personal leave and to continuing education. These were difficult decisions. The high point of the policy is essentially this. There's several high points, but essentially any staff that is returning from any hot spot, and we know what they are, we know how to measure that. We've been doing that regularly, analyzing data, and the Department of Health in South Carolina actually does that, DHEC. That when the person returns, that they're going to be needing to quarantine, self-quarantine. On the third day of the self-quarantine, we're requiring that they get tested. That's because we need to give some time for the virus to begin to shed so that the test results would reveal the status of the virus. After the test, we have to wait on those test results to come back. Unfortunately, at this time, the test result returns have slowed down considerably. And that's because, frankly, we talked to LabCorp and we've talked to Department of Health, DHEC. The labs are getting swamped with the amount of testing that is having to go on. Literally, LabCorp said this morning that they had gotten double just over the weekend of the test requests that they normally got. It's a struggle to keep up with all of this. So the test results are being delayed, and they told us candidly that we might not can expect test results ongoing in the near future earlier than 4 or 5 days. I know this is disturbing because now you've had your test, but now you have to wait on it for another 4 or 5 days. During that time, while you're self-quarantining, you can use vacation time. You can also work from home, and I really want to encourage that. Even when the coronavirus first hit us, a lot of folks had to self quarantine because of their own health reasons. They may not have been administrative. Administrative folks, yes, they may have a way simpler to work from home, but even those that were in direct care, we could find opportunities while they were working from home. Telehealth, for example. That's not over with. There's still plenty of telehealth opportunities, telecommunication, phone calls. We can certainly use more phone calls to patients to close gaps in care, phone calls to make appointments, phone calls for just check ins with patients to see how they're doing. Perhaps we haven't heard from them, or perhaps they have had a visit. So there's plenty of opportunity for folks to be able to work from home, and we will do everything in our power to assist you to work from home during any period of quarantine. If your test does come back positive, and we certainly pray that it doesn't, you can continue to work from home if you're not sick, of course, and use your sick leave at this point. Unfortunately, your quarantine will have to continue if your result is positive. 14 days from the day by which you return from travel. So I know these are really tough nuts to swallow. I understand. I understand that many of you are saying, well, why on earth do I have to tell CareSouth what my personal plans are for vacation? They've never required that before, and that seems, oh, I don't know, an invasion of privacy. I understand. Frankly, the pandemic is invading our privacy in more ways than just this. It is legal. We did have this all checked out with our employment attorney. And don't forget that our board of directors has approved this policy, and our board chair is an attorney himself. So we have all pored over this. Um, Legally, we can require testing and we can require this information. But I want to share with y'all something personally. I'm going on vacation next week. Uh, yeah, I am. I am going to Santee, the lake house there. I have from my parents a lake house. Uh, I've notified Denise that I'm going, and I have told her that when I go to the lake house, that I will continue with the exact same um, quarantine type of behavior that I've been doing during this whole time. Working from home, I will wear a mask if I happen to have to go out in public, and there's not much public going on at the lake except in conversations with fish and geese. You know how that goes. But um, if I have end up going out in public for any reason, I'll be maintaining a social distance, guaranteed. And unless I'm outdoors, I will be very mindful because we now know that even with a mask and even with social distancing, that if you are indoors in a small confined area or even in an office or a conference room, that the risk of this virus spreading increases exponentially. So I will be very mindful of that, and I assured her that I will continue with behaviors that are less risk, whether it's mask or social distancing or limiting any public experience I have. I can only ask you to join me in that. This is a tough time. This is a hard time. But we are healthcare leaders. We are. And we must continue to be healthcare leaders. We can't do that if we don't have a safe workplace for you, for staff, for you and your coworkers, so that we can provide an environment of care to our patients that is safe, and that we can continue in that provision of care to our patients such that the community remains safe. I plead with you, please do this. Please understand and help us. We don't want to be vacation police. We don't want to have to prevent continuing education to take place other than by virtual. But we do want you to be safe, and most of all, our patients and our communities to be safe. Please join me in that effort. It's not going to be easy. We've got a tough road ahead of us. And I'm afraid that it may get even tougher. But we are Care South Carolina Strong. And with your help, we will remain that way. Stay with me. Thank you. Bye bye.